Welcome to White Pill Media. I'm Dr. Infinity.
Well, come on, men. 3 cheers for her grace. Hip, hip.
Hooray! Hooray! Hip, hip! Hooray! Hip, hip! Hooray!
And I'm going to be ranting. This is a rant video about Joe Abercrombie's First Law Trilogy. I just finished it, and I kind of looked it up on YouTube because I was kind of curious what people thought. And all the videos I found seemed to like it, and I did not like it. So this is going to be a rant video. I made some videos where I bitched a lot about the Witcher books, which I think are really fucking bad. That's what this is going to be. I'm just going to kind of hip fire about why I dislike these books. I did initially kind of like book one. There were parts of book one I enjoyed, but just as the series went on, I was like, it just really lost me. The overall complaints I have with the trilogy are the characters do not really change or develop over the course of the 3 books. And that's kind of like the big thing, because while like stuff is happening in the world, like wars are won or fought and like won and lost, like people die, but none of it seems to have any effect on our characters, and our characters are our vehicles into the plot, into the story, right? Does that make sense? So that was just really, really frustrating for me. And so this is just kind of a rant video. It's going to be kind of disorganized and all over the place. Sorry about that. I think if you hate the books, maybe you'll get something out of this. And if you like the books, you probably won't. So let's get into it. You know, the first book, it wasn't like too bad for me. I did like kind of getting introduced to everyone, and it seemed like we had a somewhat interesting kind of fantasy world. I did overall find that the battle scenes, like the battle scenes happen like far too often, and they just go on for pages and pages and pages, you know, where it's just like the characters basically killing the equivalent of like level 1 bandits in like a video game, you know, but it's just like, I don't need all these fucking details about a battle that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, and that just happened like all the time throughout all the books, all 3 books, because I just went through the first 3. But it's just like so many battle scenes, and none of them are like super compelling. You know, it's like, yeah, he swung his sword, he ducked, he weaved, you know, grasping his arm and then twisting the knife. And it's like, I get it. They fought, you know, like they fought a battle. There's the sentence. There's the battle, you know. I don't mind like describing some of the battles if they're more important, but just like every stupid little encounter. Something I did not enjoy in the first book, which is just like a little too Game of Thronesy, where it's like the fucking Shanker coming down from the mountain and the Northmen guys, and I never really liked that group of guys. They were just too boring, and the characters were too similar to me. They're trying to warn, like, I think it's Calder, who's at, like, Callion or whatever. They're like, hey, Calder, the Shanker are coming down from the mountain. So there's a fantastical enemy that is coming from the far north, and they are heading south, and in heading south, they have to unite these warring factions so they can defeat a greater evil. Do you get it? Do you understand? Because I got it. And I'm like, okay, dude, like maybe the evil threat comes from the south, or maybe the evil threat comes from like the west or the east. In any direction but north. I'm going to throw that out there. In your fantasy series, any direction but north. Go for that. And I just, yeah, like, I don't think the characters are, like, awful. I don't really like Pharaoh. She's just, if I could just describe her character, just, like, just change her name to Vengeance, because that's all she thinks about. That's all she cares about. Just constantly, every day, hey, Pharaoh, what'd you think of that meal? Vengeance. Hey, Pharaoh, do you want to go shopping later? Vengeance. She's nothing else besides that, you know? And I don't think every character needs to have, like, a massive, big, like, character development, but having characters, here's their starting positions and their ending positions are the exact same, that's going to piss me off. I don't think every character needs to, like, change or develop, but, like, for our main characters, for the people we're focusing on, yeah, we need to see them kind of change and go through obstacles and become better people. You know, at least some of them, right? Some of them. Yeah, I don't really care about Pharaoh or, like, who else is it? I don't really care for Pharaoh, and Logan. Logan's just kind of the boring, like, brooding Hulk kind of guy, where it's just like, I get it, He kills a lot of people. It seems like he kills more of his friends than his enemies. It's just he's not really compelling. And I thought it was kind of bullshit in the series where he mentions like the Shanker killing his family and all that, but we know that when he goes into like his rage mode, that like he kills his friends and innocent people, all around him. So I thought, when are we going to get the fucking reveal that obviously he's the one that murdered his wife and children, right? Because that's like, I thought that's for sure what the author was going for, but it doesn't come up because I thought like, oh, that might be like somewhat interesting. I don't think it's like super interesting. By making these like quote unquote like genre breaking or like cliche defying characters, where it's just like they're not heroic, they're not chivalrous, they're just bad, awful people, that all you've done is like reinforce the new cliches, This isn't like groundbreaking. These are the new cliches. These characters are the new molds, right? Even Glockter. Glockter has some like funny inner dialogue here and there, but he's constantly questioning, why do I do this? He says that in the first book, and in the third fucking book, when there's like 20 pages left, he's still going, why do I do this? I don't know. And it's just like, he has no goal. He has no purpose, and I think he's just a little annoying. Like, the author is like too fond of just certain like word phrases. It's, back to the mud, you have to be realistic about these things, or Glockter showing people his fucked up smile, they just get sprinkled in far too much. I don't really like love our cast of characters, but I was interested by the end of the first book to see like what we could do with them, what kind of journey they would go on and how they would change, right? Because there are all these threats with like the Gurkish, like Bethod, because Bethod has now invaded England, and it's just like, okay, we'll see what happens, right? So we have our crew, we're getting set up, and that's really the whole of like the first book. I do like Vitari. Call me a simp, call me whatever, but Vitari's cute. I think Vitari's cute, even though we only get like descriptions of her. Very cute. I enjoy her quite a bit. In the second book, it's really just like the entire journey, searching for the seed at the end of the world. It takes basically the entire focus. Yeah, that's the entire book for like the majority of the characters, right? We have Glockter in Dagaska, and then we have West. It's West, who is up in the north during the England War, right? So these are our main three theaters, okay? Again, we're just constantly questioning, like, what's the point of this? Because we know by the end of the second book that the seed is not there. So their journey is like quite literally pointless, especially because our characters don't take in any lessons that they've learned and apply them to their lives. So they have not. So physically, they may have traveled very far, but they have not changed, so they don't gain anything. The War of England, like some stuff is going on, but again, I do really think it's just, one, the author really fucking hates monarchy and the idea of royalty and the idea that there could ever be like a good or decent king, right? That everyone like in these types of systems is obviously like evil, corrupt, or stupid, or malicious in some way, because I think it's Gustav. I think that is the king, right? Gustav is the king. He's just like fat, incompetent, drunk all the time, stupid. He pisses himself, and he's just a caricature of a bad king. And Ladislar is like even worse, because he's a coward and he's a moron, and he gets a bunch of people killed in the war, right? Because he gives battle to Bethod when he really shouldn't. And after that, it's like, of course, he's like cartoonishly evil, because him like not being treated like a prince for the first time in his life, you think like maybe he's going to change a bit, maybe like being forced to rough it for a few weeks, he's going to become a better person and he might be a decent king, right? That doesn't happen. Instead, he tries to rape a woman, because again, he's just cartoonishly evil. So Ladislar tries to rape a woman, and then West kills him. There is like a certain level of like voyeurism in these books. It is a little strange. I think it's just kind of book 2 where it stood out to me a little bit, where I'm not saying that the woman that West saved should have like gifted him with sex. I am not saying that, but I am saying like it is like kind of weird. You know what I mean? Where it's just like subverting romance and it's kind of subverting these chivalrous tales where she picks like the nastiest guy in camp to fuck her. And it's just like, how am I supposed to feel about this? I think it's like fucking Dogman or something. And like the book describes like his hairy ass. It's just like, Jesus Christ. And I think it's also Giselle. It's like he wakes up and like Logan and Pharaoh are having sex. So like there's a bit of voyeurism from this author. I'll throw that out there. There's a bit of voyeurism here. But that's really all that happens in like England. The situation's kind of shitty. It might get better. And, their whole journey out west is filled with like kind of shitty, pointless battles. I don't know what the point of Brother Longford is. He doesn't really do much. Like, I think just them kind of being guided by old shitty maps would have been something. Probably maybe one of the few things I enjoyed in book 2. Like, Bias is using magic, and we've been told like magic is dangerous. But then like he uses it on some bad guys, and like it starts like, he kind of gets like lifted up in the air and he's like thrown around like a rag doll because he's just like, no. And it's just like, I kind of like that. I thought that was like kind of decent because I thought Pharaoh talking about how she was a slave and she kind of cut up her own face in this kind of self-harm thing. I thought that was decent, but she's still like pretty cliche. And then like her wanting like people to be around and having people to care about and for people to care about her. Again, she's all alone at the end of the book, and all she gives a shit about is vengeance. Logan's going back to the north to fight more worthless battles, and essentially all the pieces have been reset. And for Dagorska, it's like the last city on the Kantic continent that the Gurkish do not control. Okay, so it's the last city there, and Glockter is there, and he's trying to like root out traitors and then just like hold off for as long as he can, even though there's no reinforcements coming. He doesn't really have to like bother with any of the intrigue, He doesn't have to bother with like everything just kind of falls into his lap in terms of like rooting out the traitors, in terms of like holding off the Gurkish or like dealing with those consequences. Like all of it kind of gets just like brushed aside, and then you're left with the question of what's the point of Dagorska? What's the point of all this struggle and all these people dying? Why not just capitulate to the Gurkish immediately? And then it's like, there was no point. It was just a like point of pride between High Justice Morovia and Solt, right? That was it. And it's like, wow, that's deep. Wow. Oh man, that's awesome. Felt like with just these books, I'm just like rolling my eyes, where there's nothing positive, there's nothing happy, there's nothing, good. There's no like romance even. And I'm not saying like all books like need romance, but I mean, it's like there's literally nothing positive by the end of these books. Literally nothing really positive. And then, that's not realistic. It's not realistic for everything to be like dead and depressing, that's not like good. It doesn't have to be like high fantasy where everyone gets an absolute perfect ending, but like the opposite of that is also true. This is a Kiwi Farms channel. We're positive here, we're positive here. This isn't Reddit. This isn't like nasty Reddit shit. They can keep that depressing crap. We don't want that here. We don't put up with those people. Dagorska is pointless. Mission to find the seed, also pointless, and nothing is resolved in England. And here is a huge point I had with the series, where Bethod has somehow managed to convince the Shanker to fight for him. And the Shanker are like these monster men creatures, they're not really human. They're like sort of orcs, I guess, but they're like more subhuman than orcs, okay? And somehow he's able to convince these beasts to work for him. And this never gets addressed. Not in book 3. It doesn't get addressed what he was offering them or how he was able to convince them to join his side and to fight for him. That it doesn't happen, That's basically book 2, okay? Where nothing has happened. Literally nothing has happened. And I found this online, but I thought it was a pretty good quote where Abercrombie might as well introduce all the characters in the plot and then say, and nothing else will ever change for the better, the end. Because that's essentially what happens. That's essentially what happens. And book 3, we have some big stuff going on. We have the conclusion to like Bethod and his war. We have the Gurkish, attacking Adua, and they've invaded. And those are, I guess, are two like big theaters. Okay, Glockter is like a terrible character. I don't think he's good because he never develops. He never changes. You know, it's very like basic changes, if that. Because sometimes he can be funny, but otherwise he just seems kind of pointless. Where he just like tortures and brutalizes innocent people. And like, I don't want to see anyone happy in these books. You know, I don't really like or care about anyone because they're all shitty people, and that is a problem when I'm like going through 3 big fantasy books and I don't care about any of the characters. I don't care about them succeeding, you know? It doesn't matter to me. But in the War in the North, Zhao is now a king, but he's also like kind of a cuck as a king, and I'll get into that in a little bit. During like when Bethod is laid siege to that one like crazy mountain or hillman's like fortress, Logan goes into his like berserker rage and he ends up killing like a young boy and then his friend, the Thunderhead, right? It's like, you cannot redeem Logan Ninefingers. You know, you cannot fucking redeem him after doing something like this. I don't care if Logan saves the day. He murdered a child. And you could argue that, you know, he wasn't in his right frame of mind, but like, I don't give a shit. You know? Like, I don't fucking care. If someone was like, dude, I have BPD, so I'm really sorry I shot all those people. It's like, great, I still want you to get fucking hanged. Logan ends up, you know, defeating the Feared, who was like a demon under like Goostrod, and like that's kind of interesting, but there's not really too much to it. And Logan just like smashes Bethod's face against the wall, and it's just like really anticlimactic, and we don't get like a ton of details about like more of like Logan serving Bethod and that kind of time period, because it's like they really built up, maybe bond's not the right word, but like them like working together to like conquer the North, and like they're falling out where Bethod now like wants to kill him, but it's not like covered too well. You know what I mean? Like it just seems like lackluster when it's finally over. Bethod's apprentice has kind of disappeared for most of the 3rd book, and he really doesn't do much in the 2nd book either. In the 2nd book, you can obviously tell that he's like now fucking evil for some reason, that he's definitely evil, and you know, we're just waiting to see what's going to happen. Like he's going to be an eater or he's going to be something, right? And then finally that gets revealed, and it's just so convoluted. It's so convoluted. It's just like such a mediocre payoff where it's like Ptolemy, who's like the Master Maker's daughter, and she just gets locked in like the Master Maker's house, and it never comes up again for the rest of the book. You know, she's just there, and she like raised herself from the dead, and you're like, what's the point? You know, like what is the point? You know, what is the point of making it more convoluted where it's like Ptolemy's, you know, come back from the dead, you know, and shit, if it's not going to be like addressed or concluded? I don't fucking get it. I would say it's pretty obvious that Glockter had 2 traitors with him, you know, and it's just like, he's still saying, he's been doing it for 3 books, right? I don't know why I'm doing this. It's like, me either, man. You don't have any goals. You're not really a character. I don't know why you do this shit either. Okay, it doesn't make sense. So the 2 traitors, like, they didn't really do much for me. I wish we would have seen more of Vitari. She's cute. Pharaoh is just like, she's going off to like, because they defeated the Gurkish now and blah, blah, blah. And she's going off to like get revenge on like Uthman. And I think she might be like the worst character I've ever read. She's up there for like the worst characters I've ever read, where it's just like vengeance, 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 vengeance. Like nothing has changed. You could honestly cut out Pharaoh from like book 2 and from like most of book 3, and then it would just be the same, where it's just like, I want to go kill Uthman el-Dosh. That's all I care about. Same character. I did kind of like Bias. It seems like a little convoluted. Like if he was somewhat smarter, if he was as smart as he's portrayed, that he would have a better grasp on the world and his like control would be a little tighter. I did like Bias. I thought that was kind of interesting. The Princess Therese, and now the Queen Therese, who refuses to have sex with Giselle, and Giselle just like kind of mopes about it because Giselle is still like a weak man. He's still like a loser, you know, because of course we can never have happy romances or a happy relationship in these books because this is quote unquote realistic. I will say this. I think it was very obvious that they were setting up her to be like a lesbian. And of course, like the most beautiful woman in the world is actually a lesbian. You know, it's like, I'm not trying to be that guy. But I'm saying in reality, not what Hollywood puts out. I'm saying in reality, all of like the lesbians I know are not most attractive women in the room. You know, I'm not trying to offend people with that, but I'm just saying from my experience, from the people that I know, they're not the most attractive people in the room. You know, and they're definitely not the most beautiful women. You know what I mean? Where it's like he's really just like trying to like, I bet you didn't see that coming. It's like, I saw it coming, dude. No, really, I saw it coming. You didn't throw me for a loop there, you know? It's just like, whoa. No, I fucking saw it coming. Nothing happens. I would just say that about just like the books, where it's just like nothing has really happened and things are just like ugly and bleak and bitter. And you know what? It might not be quote unquote realistic, but sometimes you could use a goth rogue, you know, and sometimes you could also use a domino, you know, and maybe it's not realistic. Maybe these women don't actually exist, but sometimes they're needed. And just the idea that like all people are like depraved and hedonistic and they only care about themselves and they're selfish and stupid is such bullshit that gets projected through like these crappy books and like Game of Thrones and like The Witcher, and it's just awful. I really hate it. Honestly, give me back like old like chivalry and romance and that type of shit where you can make it a little darker. That's fine, but just like this, where it's just like nothing happens and everything's just ugly and bleak and stupid, it's just a waste of time, you know. And we end the series with Glockter torturing Sult, and literally, the last fucking time we see Glockter, he goes, "Why do I do this?" And it's like, yeah, it hasn't been addressed. Why do you do this? Why do you do this? And Logan, of course, he gets ambushed by Black Dow and Scale and Calder. He's most likely dead. I don't know for sure if he's dead, but I would say he's probably dead. And it's just like, yeah, no shit, they were going to betray you, you know? And it's like, honestly, Black Dow, he's a better man than Logan. He hasn't murdered any children from what I know. Black Dow hasn't killed kids. So, you know, better man than Logan for sure. And that's kind of it. You know, it's just the characters do not change. Not like stuff happens in the plot, you know, but it doesn't like affect our characters in any way. You know, it's like, what's kind of the point? You know, what's kind of the point? I regret reading these books. I need to be better about, you know, putting down books I'm not enjoying, you know, so I'm not like wasting time on them. Like I started this like horror book by like Tom or something Ligotti or whatever his fucking name was. I checked that out and, you know, it was just like, it sucked. It really sucked. You know, it's just like purple prose the book and like not scary or unsettling whatsoever. So I dropped that and I'm like, that's good. I'm happy that I was able to like drop shit like that. Anyways, if you want like, I'll recommend like a book, you know, if you want a book, The Choir Boys by Joseph Wamba. It's a black comedy. And I would say like there's some dark shit in there. There's also some light shit, you know, it's balanced. It's quote, it's more realistic than the First Law Trilogy, but that's about these pairs of cops that work in LA. It's like right after Vietnam, have this thing called choir practice where they get together in a park after work and they drink and they just like vent and blow off steam. And I like it. I think it's really good. If you do check it out, Baxter Slate, he's our boy. Baxter Slate's our boy. And let me know if you get to the part where Father Willie becomes a legend. Just check out the book. Go in spoiler free. And you know, I looked at my bookshelf the other day. And I realized I did not have any books written by women on there. And I'm like, that's based. That's red-pilled. But I did get a copy and put it up there of Gods and Fighting Men by Lady Gregory. It's good Irish mythology. And I did like the book, you know. So now there's one. I have one book written by a woman on my shelf. Anyways, I don't do like a ton of book reviews on this channel. You know, I might start doing some few more and just kind of peppering them in, but it's mostly like TV shows and movies and such. That's going to be it. Thanks for watching. Dr. Infinity out.